We begin today by talking about the host of a podcast, and this podcast describes itself as the place where science meets pop culture. And the host himself is renowned both for his scientific acumen as well as being, a pop culture icon himself. We talk about his opinion on so many subjects, and we read the words of Abraham Lincoln, sort of, and black cats. There are so many black cats in this episode, and all of this is on the way to answering the question, what does Neil deGrasse Tyson actually say about theology? Welcome to the Sky Pilot podcast that explores questions of faith, spirituality, and religion. I'm Dan Matthews, and I don't have all the answers, but I do enjoy the questions. Welcome to the podcast where every question is an invitation into a spiritual quest, and you're invited along for the journey. Hi, I'm Dan, and this is Sky Pilot Faith Quest Podcast, the video version. And if you've been here before, welcome back. If you're new, then I'm delighted that you found your way here. And just quickly, this is a new channel, and so I'm shamelessly asking for your help right at this point. Costs you nothing, takes almost no effort to do. Just like and subscribe to this video. If you're feeling particularly generous, then ring the bell to get notified of future episodes. And that's all it takes. And I would be so thankful. All right. I want to begin by saying that I have ambivalent feelings, that's the right word, about Neil deGrasse Tyson. I know he will be so devastated to hear it. I mean, I think he is an amazing, eloquent, persuasive spokesperson for astronomy, physics, and science in general. And let me say that none of my negative opinions are shaped by his beliefs. It is the verbal expression of his negativity towards religion, faith, and even some other academic pursuits that at times just bothers me. As an interesting aside, but it will become related in a moment, I will say that I have seen online that many atheists vocally celebrate their understanding that the man, Dr. Tyson, who is, according to me, arguably the most famous scientist in the United States right now, they celebrate the fact that he is an atheist. I mean, I've listened to him a lot, and I would have to agree that he seems, to me, just listening to his words, to be firmly in the atheistic camp. Now, having said that, I have never heard him use the word atheist to describe himself. But lots of atheists, and this Christian here, agree that he sure sounds like he's an atheist. But evidently, he does not buy into this description of himself. When asked about his religious beliefs, he replied, and this is a direct quote from him, "I remain unconvinced by any claims anyone has ever made about the existence or the power of a divine force operating in the universe." Okay, those sure sound like the words of an atheist to me. So why doesn't he claim the designation? Well, mostly because he sees the word atheist to be an active word. Atheists, according to him, are actively proclaiming their beliefs and trying to get the world to change. He has no interest in any of that. As he says, similarly, he does not play golf either, but there doesn't need to be a word to describe him as a non-golfer. One of the funny things about being a minister is that I have actually had many people over the years tell me that they're an atheist. Sometimes church members, no less. 15 to 17-year-old teenagers in particular delight in announcing to their church-going parents that they are now atheists. Sometimes they're just trying to get out of waking up and going to church on Sunday morning. Sometimes they enjoy the reaction this proclamation elicits from their now panicked parents. But sometimes they've actually thought about it and come to what they consider to be a reasoned conclusion. And interestingly, it's not unusual for the parents to encourage these teenagers, sometimes insist, all right, more often than not, downright demand that these teenagers come to my office to speak to me. The parents are panicked at the new announcement. And normally, to be honest, I'm not. My reason that I'm not concerned is this. You might be surprised how many clergy themselves went through an atheistic phase in their youth. Rather than this phase meaning that they're turning their backs on faith, it often means that they are actually deeply considering their faith and what they believe at that point in their life. What I will also say is that more than a few times, I have talked them out of their atheism.
Ah, such a silver-tongued evangelist that you are.
Irish this time?
Yeah, I find it more fun to say the word silver-tongued with an Irish accent.
Okay, good enough. Yes, I talk them out of their atheism, but no, probably not in the way that you think when you hear me say that. Very often the teen says, I've decided that I'm an atheist because I'm just not sure about all of this. So I tell them there's another word between believer and non-believer, between Christian and atheist. And that word means unsure. It is, of course, the word agnostic. So often the teen will say, oh, okay, then I'm not an atheist. I'm an agnostic. Now, I'm getting back to Neil deGrasse Tyson, I promise. But Neil deGrasse Tyson is the rare case where I hear him and think, no, you call yourself an agnostic, but you sure sound like an atheist to me. Having said all of this, when being asked about being an atheist, he responded in the following way, and, well, I'll just let you listen to him say it in his own words.
Okay. I'm constantly claimed by atheists. I find this intriguing. In fact, on my wiki page, I didn't create the wiki page, others did, and I'm flattered that people cared enough about my life to assemble it. And it said, Neil deGrasse Tyson is an atheist. I said, well, that's not really true. I said, Neil deGrasse Tyson is an agnostic. Went back a week later, it said Neil Tyson's an atheist again, within a week. And I said, what's up with that? And I said, all right, now I have to word it a little differently. So I said, okay, Neil deGrasse Tyson, widely claimed by atheists, is actually an agnostic.
So I'm a firm believer in letting people decide what they are. Everyone should be allowed to choose what labels, if any, get attached to them. And he says, of the terms that are available in our language, he believes that agnostic is the closest to describing him. Far be it from me to tell him how he believes or what language should be used to describe his thought system or belief system. Anyway, I was on the internet not long ago, and there was a quote from none other than Neil deGrasse Tyson. And it's the impetus for this episode. This quote describes several academic and philosophical pursuits: philosophy, metaphysics, theology, science, and it describes each of these by using the analogy of trying to find a black cat in a dark room. Perhaps you've seen it on the internet. If not, I'll read it to you in just a second. Now, before I read it to you, I should say that I know Dr. Tyson does not have a very high regard for philosophy. In an interview on the Nerdist podcast, he was heard saying that philosophy is, what's the word? Useless. That's the one. Useless. And that a philosophy major can really mess you up. And I think it's fair to say that if that's his opinion of philosophy, then his opinion of theology would surely be somewhere significantly beneath that. So here's the quote that I ran across attributed to Neil deGrasse Tyson. Philosophy is like being in a dark room looking for a black cat. Metaphysics is like being in a dark room looking for a black cat that isn't there. Theology is like being in a dark room looking for a black cat that isn't there and shouting, I found it. Science is like being in a dark room looking for a black cat while using a flashlight. Okay, after I saw this quote, I was puzzled. In some ways, it sounds like the kind of biting, dismissive thing he would say in regard to other pursuits, the other pursuits that are specifically named here. But there were a couple of problems. First, there was no attribution.
Are you quite sure about that? Sounds like you've already said that it was attributed quite clearly.
Yeah, it was attributed to him, but there wasn't anything else. No date, no forum at which he said it, nor is there any writing or book listed as the source of this quote.
Pretty sure books and writing did not need to be listed separately.
if I can encourage you in your online life, it would be this. Don't ever repost a quote that doesn't have something that tells the reader where this quote was taken, where it was found. More often than not, you're simply posting something that was made up. Better yet, even if there is an attribution, check it out before you repost it. Or to say it better and quote someone far wiser and more eloquent, this is from Abraham Lincoln, be cautious and filled with self-protecting vigilance, for you cannot trust the quotes you encounter upon the virtual technologies of this day.
You made that up.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone picked up on the fact that the quote from Lincoln isn't real. Actually, I did make it up, and then I created an antique-looking meme to go with the quote. I'm going to post it on my SkyPilot Facebook page. I'm embarrassed to tell you I am way too proud of it, so I'll let you see it and see what you think about it. Okay, anyway, back to Neil deGrasse Tyson's internet quote. I looked it up just to be sure it was from him, and guess what? Yeah, he didn't say it. It's evidently been attributed to a number of famous people over the years. Dr. Tyson, not the first of them. Matter of fact, Charles Darwin is even among the people who this quote has been attributed to. As a matter of fact, it's been around long before the internet and can be traced at least back to the 1890s. If it only went back a little bit further than that, we could claim Abraham Lincoln said it too.
So the quote you found is not real, so we're done here, right?
Well, not quite. I think it's worth taking a look at because it's really popular, and I want to hold up what it says and what it's trying to do. When I do premarital counseling with engaged couples, one of the most important things I teach is how to fight. Yeah. Okay, that's probably not the best way of saying it. A better way of saying it is this: how to listen to each other in times of conflict, in times of disagreement. And the most important skill anyone can learn in conflict when you're dealing with someone who you don't agree with is the ability to say the other person's position, the other person's belief or feelings in a way that that person responds with, yes. Yes, that's exactly how I feel, or exactly how I think, or exactly how I believe. The goal is not to change your own beliefs, just to state the other person's position in a way that they believe that you truly understand them, not agree with them, just understand them. So today we have a quote that purports to describe these different areas of study, focus. And for the purposes of this conversation, I'm going to limit us to 3 of the 4. Metaphysics is really a subset of philosophy, so I will cut it out for the sake of brevity.
I believe it's too late for that.
Okay, that's fair. So let's go back to the quote, and this time listen with our ears tuned to the following question. Does this fairly describe each of these areas of study in a way that a scientist, theologian, and philosopher would agree with? Philosophy is like being in a dark room and looking for a black cat. Theology is like being in a dark room and looking for a black cat that isn't there and shouting, "I found it." Science is like being in a dark room looking for a black cat while using a flashlight. So let's start with philosophy. Would someone who is a philosopher, a PhD in philosophy, look at this description and say, yes, that's exactly the nature of philosophy. That's what it is. Yeah, I don't think so. Let's be honest, describing a pursuit as similar to looking for a black cat in a dark room is really intended to make the endeavor sound futile and silly from the outset. Now, let's move to theology. Notice that the description of theology is phrased in such a way as to make it clear that it's already false before it gets started. Looking for a black cat that isn't there. So obviously, no theologian would ever agree to this description of theology. So the problem with this quote is that it in no way attempts to fairly or accurately depict all the different areas of study. Quite to the contrary, it's a pretty blatant attempt to skew the perception of those who see it. So let me change the description. I kind of think of life as being filled with interesting and surprising discoveries. So imagine I go more in that direction with our analogy. Imagine that the journey of life is like humanity walking along a path out in nature. And as humanity is walking along this path through life, along the path, suddenly you, representing all of humanity, notice that there are 30 pebbles stacked one on top of each other. They're perfectly balanced in a column, and it catches your attention. If you're a scientist, you might say, this is fascinating. I don't know how they are balanced in a way to keep this formation, but I have a couple of ideas, and I'm going to form a theory and test it to see if it's correct. I'm going to try to discover the physical forces at work here. If you're a philosopher, you say something along the lines of, look at these rocks. These are interesting. But I wonder about them. I wonder why I'm interested in them. Why do I find this stack of pebbles, this stack of rocks, more interesting than the last pile of pebbles I just passed? What do I actually know about these pebbles, and how do I even know that there are pebbles stacked in front of me? If you're a theologian, perhaps you say, look at that amazing stack of pebbles. This causes me to wonder larger things and question things, like where did the pebbles come from? Who ultimately created them? Why are they here? And what's the intent of whoever created these pebbles? And how does that intent, how does that creation, how does whoever's behind it, my awareness of them, how is it supposed to change my life and the way I live my life? Now, I know that none of these are perfect descriptions because they try in just a few sentences to describe broad and complex fields. But I hope, and I'll probably find out shortly after I post this through emails and messages, but I hope I have fairly accurately depicted each of these in a way that's not intended to strengthen one while diminishing the others. Remember, we started this whole conversation with talking about Neil deGrasse Tyson, his belief. And I said, at the end of the day, everyone has the right of self-description. Neil deGrasse Tyson does. Scientists do. Philosophers do. Even theologians do. Every single person of any form of belief or study has the right of self-description. Scientists don't get to define religion. Theologians don't get to define science. You as a Christian, you don't get to make a determination about what other people who are part of other faiths believe. You, if you're an atheist, don't get to tell believers what they believe. And consequently, also believers don't get to tell atheists what their goals are with their atheism. And I tell you this, I'll give you an example from my own life. I've been told at times that because I'm a Christian and because I believe in the Trinity, which is part of Christianity, I therefore believe in not one, but three gods. When somebody says this to me, I will say, no, actually, that's not my belief. I believe in one God. And the person will respond, oh yeah, you do. The Trinity is a belief system in three gods. I, on the other hand, I only believe in one God. In a moment like this, when somebody says something like that, all I can say to that is, you know, when you tell me that you only believe in one God, I believe you. Because who knows better what you believe than you? So I sure hope you will grant me the same courtesy when I tell you what I believe as to believe me. I hope we can all treat each other with exactly that same courtesy as we make our way through this thing called life. You get to decide what you believe. Other people likewise get to decide what they believe. It seems like a pretty simple and workable system to me, that is. And that's all for today. We touched on a lot of hot button topics today, didn't we? Kind of the atheism versus religion, agnosticism versus atheism, philosophy, religion, and science. Are they at odds with one another? So what do you think? Is the world a better place if we allow each other the right of self-description? Or maybe you believe there is something to gain in our confronting each other when we are sure when we believe that the other person is not describing their own beliefs, what we think of as honestly or accurately. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Or you can also leave me a topic in the comments below, just a topic of something you'd like to hear covered in a future episode. Actually, leave anything you want in the comments below. And remember that feeling you get when you go to the mailbox and you discover that there's a letter, a real honest-to-goodness letter in the mailbox? That's the feeling you get when you discover that somebody has left you a comment in the comments below as a YouTube creator. So please, leave something, anything you want in the comments below. I'd love to see it. On your spiritual journey, may you ask questions, seek answers, and boldly go wherever the quest takes you. Thanks for joining us here today and being part of the SkyPilot Faith Quest community. This is a great place to ask questions you wouldn't feel comfortable or safe asking in other places. And remember, the sign of a strong faith, solid religion, or healthy spiritual journey is not certainty, but that you keep asking questions.